25. Today, 100 starving Palestinians were killed rushing an aid truck while frightened Israeli troops shot them down. Many more were trampled to death as the crowd fled the hail of gunfire. International life support delivery to Gaza has been wrenched deliberately by Israel from 500 to 800 trucks a day, by border blockade down to 50 to 100 for 5 months until famished hordes now rip apart most loads mere feet from the border. The world has never seen such a massive, near-total siege of millions plunge an entire population from mere poverty to full famine starvation, not to mention full destruction of water delivery infrastructure, then deliberate denial of imported resupply. International law requires a dominant military power to restore life support that its invasion had destroyed. Israel refuses, then organized an international denial of more funding to the main UN relief shipper that the 5-month attacker mostly blocks anyway. They discovered that a dozen aid workers had joined the attack on Israel. So thousands of relief workers and millions of Palestinians must be punished for it. The American bomb supplier withdrew its relief funding, of course. Thousands are already dying from this monstrous evil, in addition to the Palestinian war weapon killing of 30,000, plus 7,000 more rotting under the rubble, and countless more buried unreported on the spot. I don't shout the worst innocent slaughter by the worst attack wars to angrily whip you into condemnation of the physical perpetrators, either Hamas butchering unoffending Israeli innocents in kibbutzes and kids at an outdoor concert, or the callous IDF bomber button pushers dropping 2,000-pound bombs on military tunnels by first obliterating 1,000-resident apartment buildings above. Nor does it help to blame war machine cogs, presidents, generals, bribed legislators, or even disgustingly legal genocidal weapons dealers. Focus on us, taxpayers who unconsciously allow major fractions of our money to go to private and government thieves marketing weapons designed to explode decades worse and bigger wars for mostly one purpose: endless more thievery. The 90% weaponeer bribed 100% vote the appropriations, campaign cash payoffs to the specific weapons companies. Public money robbery is an enormous but not the only war cause. Look at historic bigotry. War number 1 attacked strange farmer others, albeit in desperation for food. Farming boomed population until nearing other, obviously evil races of wrong colors. Their nation's flags were different, proving them enemies. New religions are also nothing but false, evil threats to our one true faith. 10,000 wars to crush and kill inferior, different, evil colors, nations, and beliefs. Senator J. William Fulbright's dictum, "Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely," refers to bigotry's ever more genocidal weaponization, as well as all institutions built to boom them in every growing and deadly war. I speak to make you win disarmament law. Bribery of leaders for monstrous arms business profits also explodes those weapons. What law would strip bigotry from blackened minds and hearts? My speeches detail peace treaty law for worldwide schooling to Skype 195 nation students together to learn about and with respect, collaborate with, and love every other as really us, equal and good. Required attendance age 5 to 125. Then the next 100,000 political candidates flogging alien hate for war would lose by landslides. What causes civil wars? National tyranny. Mostly military dictators crushing freedom and economies. Your best world treaty requires demilitarized democracy. My speeches detail. Old Steve's obsessively got it in for all war. You'll notice that every speech of mine tells more war cruelty stories. Don't just kill the baddies, make 'em suffer first. Warrior sadists intend fully human victims to go to hell alive on earth. Pain and punishment for crimes against their superiors. Another kind of casual cruelty also flourishes in minds believing every military or civilian enemy subhuman, below perception of pain, requiring no more pity than a cut-up worm. Bigotry, prejudice against countless inferior, stupid, evil, hostile, criminal, enemy groups requires cruelty. Just proudly renamed righteous vengeance, ultimate punishing justice. One more universal war motive. While we kick ass, let's steal their farms, oil fields, markets, resources, money, freedom, government, and future. Look at all his story. Monstrous weapons and armies built for profit and power. Top dog payoffs motivating every attack and conquest. Finally satisfied by forced tribute, stolen spoils, and lives all over the world defeated by the war king. Surviving victims, forever abused slaves. Enriched and empowered leaders don't neglect their own bigotry and hate, but most leap on every propaganda tool to explode whole population fury with the next depraved foreign enemy's entire population. Lies vital to empty voters' wallets of cash and their homes of teenage cannon fodder. Well, your loving truth world classes will disintegrate their next 1,000 hate propaganda campaigns to filthy, ignored, or laughed at dust. I'll offer an example of the hate and cruelty that poured out of a formerly human mind and heart, twisted by perhaps 90% of every war exploder we've just listed and described. A right-wing official high in Israel's war-leading government echoed the views of many radical haters. When a journalist asked him about any new policy challenges to deal with exploding Palestinian starvation, he said, "All aid to a population led by Hamas holders of Israeli hostages should be cut off until 100% surrender of the fighters and 100% hostage release." We were to understand that two wrongs, Hamas kibbutz attack and Israel's civilian siege, made a right. A myriad innocents must die as punishment for any involuntary association with the guilty. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Only your world peace laws end every financial campaign, bribing, stealing, weapon and army building, hating, attacking, Holocaust to extinction power. Recall that nearly every warrior nation in his story was led by single military dictators who led civilian populations, initially 90% against wrecking their own family fortunes by sending the precious young male fruit of their labors to fight and die merely for that single king's profit, power, and glory. So the dictator always fixed that little public safety and self-interest problem with decades of propaganda to whip up fear and hate of enemies, surely about to come kill us all in our own beds, unless we attack and invade them first. Understand that all those absolute powers were never broken, but stayed to reverse in every fully militarized post-monarchy, in name only democracy, back to one-man warrior despotism. Such brainwashing from the single master of all soldiers and weapons, bought with a fat slice of workers' confiscated wages, extends most identical serial dictator's power 1,000% longer than any true, peaceful, human rights democracy, presidential or legislative term in office. Public opinion and protection does rule on paper in every democratic constitution, but citizen wishes or needs are entirely spit upon by every single and collective martial human abuse tool and conspiracy that my speeches rail against. One leader of absolute power plus a corrupt ruling class of a tiny few percent still rule over each powerless, just fully used and abused population. Our modern world's nations descend in a continuum from the most militarized, corrupt, and autocratic to the least militarized, least corrupt, and most democratic who achieved public humanity, with laws attaining fortunate parts of human security and fulfillment that you must demand for all. So get with me. Speaking of crushed citizens, Putin just murdered his heroic rival Alexei Navalny in prison. His dream of a free Russia, no longer just KGB and dictator henchmen, will live hundreds of years in Russian hearts. But Putin is still likely to savage multiple foreign nation victims and his own bloodied soldiers and citizens until he strokes out at 85. Even then, Navalny's public decency may not gain any power over the dominant Russian military-industrial corruption complex. Unless your world peace and care government movement floods the Russian internet for many years prior. All my war reports have a single purpose: your anger, fear, love, and hope to build peace law to end war. 10,000 years of peace dreamers floated out good karma to inspire thieves to repent and every white-knuckled fist around a weapon to relax and drop it. Worked great for 1 out of 1,000. The other 999 power meisters felt the love, then broke every rib laughing. You got a better idea. Law. Kick ass and take names. Don't lose to power. Defeat it. Your secret? Peace is war. I give you dozens of hours of specific legal appeals for peace and survival law based on every institution built until you break it to boom corrupt weaponeering and government war and environmental neglect and destruction, all being directly unconstitutional, therefore subject to federal court overrule. Your pressure to also enlist executive and legislative reform will only work with millions' legal and political attacks. Detail your entire package into a world treaty that you and countless private allies negotiate first before forcing it on every government to win our ongoing victory that begins more decades of world life-saving. Accomplishing what? Canceling your little girl's suffering and death. Instead, she'll sing and dance at your 100th birthday party, love, and credit you for getting her there. America and Russia are the double-barreled shotgun about to blow humanity's head off. Both giant military dictatorships corruptly explode weapons companies and genocidal armies millions of times more lethal than history's 14 previous empires combined. The American pretender to the world's greatest democracy trophy killed many more millions since World War II than any other nation by fueling half of 250 wars' kill power, and also launches every war of its own minus any declaration of Congress, absolutely against our constitutional people's choice of war or peace. My legal demand: not one bullet leaves our shores from army or weapons dealer outside of a congressional constitutional declaration of war. Demand the same of the other 194 nations. Both American and Russian superpowers drive real and impending world war from their arms merchants and 10 times extinction of 8 billion arsenals. Both destroy present and future health and survival prospects the world over. Both will only be stopped by a world citizens movement for peace law and water, forest, air, and food rescue. I feature many laws for democracy in my treaty because our own democracy founders always said and designed into law that a fully free people always chooses peace and equality of all individuals and groups over militarized foreign entanglements. Our constitutional public purpose is government of we, the people, never ruled only by corrupt oligarchs' power of wealth and wealth of power. Reformers that only beg people to behave always fail. But 1,000 times, reformers who won law to make us behave saved us all. Oh yeah! I'm trying to wrap up war theater tragedy reports and finish your speeches because I want your help for disarmament, new water sources, forest irrigation, and democratic reforms to empower your interventions. Without your successful help, old Steve drops plans to rock and roll till he's 100 and drains his last bottle of water while closing the blinds over that fireball in the window. I update you on Gaza and Ukraine because our distress for the victims has purpose. We will only prevent tragedies by learning causes and stopping them. Putin and Netanyahu invade and slaughter with massive genocidal weapons sold and supplied to us because way over 7 billion folks old enough to know better don't. Only you will teach them. Absolutely powerful weapons first explode in the brains, hearts, and souls of the owners. My army must drop these bombs on people in foreign lands to make the ruined survivors obey me and populate my dream empire. Of course they won't if I just ask them. So with bombs I'll kill myriads and enslave the rest. One dictator rules all, destroys all, until you destroy every bomb. Just expand my next several-minute description of human torture into the few upcoming years of 100% human abuse, 0% life support rescue. Even good news is scary. So long as a minority of legislators obstruct further American resupply, the Ukrainian army, out of ammo, dies in retreat. Putin doesn't need nukes to win, only if he loses. Maybe we'll enjoy a couple years reprieve from Vlad's ICBMs. He's only about to ravage and enslave Ukraine. 1 million could die. Now Gaza, coming tens of thousands of starvation deaths will vary with a single number. Relief trucks entering and successfully expanding food and water supply and medical support. With an immediate full year of ceasefire and restoration of close to 1,000 daily trucks, Gaza still has a future far more miserable and destitute than 95% of humanity. Today, the handful of trucks Israel allows in are ripped apart by starving mobs under a hail of IDF bullets. Try and run with your bag of flour for 5 seconds until you're trampled to death. I hope you listen to this during a ceasefire and massive aid increase. Just understand that if you sit back and abandon your 5-minute daily campaign to grow that disarmament treaty, today's 49 murder-incorporated fueled wars will expand such arenas of savage torture and murder everywhere. Now I hear your challenge, your critique of my utopian demands. Steve, 180 nation citizens could hammer democracy, water and forest rescue, and disarmament. But 15 savage tyrants brainwashing their people as fast as we try to reach them will refuse to disarm and keep attacking, right? Would you have us disband armies and grind up nukes so the bad guys could march and fly armies 25,000 miles around and nuke the 50 capitals that made them nervous? Because the crazy disarmers had no conventional or nuclear defense. My reply, points well taken. Some number of entrenched, heavily armed tyrants will slow our utopia by years, hopefully not decades. Nuclear disarmament and border defenses only can be worked on by billions, even as a few monsters stonewall. Danger to Ukraine is absolutely not eased by total retreat from international defense. Though I have proven that helping Zelensky kick out Putin kills 8 billion with 9,000 H-bombs. First, we must focus on stopping or reducing wars everywhere. Mighty difficult while all humanity is armed to the teeth. First, we build political and economic pressure on the worst invaders to cool it or suffer consequences enough to make even secure dictators insecure. Yemen dies under American bombs. Gaza too. Half of 49 wars' slaughter is with American weapons. Every single American voter today votes for candidates promising the economy support, border control, and medical policies most attractive to them. But selling weapons to murder 1 million foreigners a year? Isn't that just more good jobs at the war plants? Whatever. Who cares? So it's up to you to internet explode to that voter. World war you vote for will keep robbing the trillions needed to keep your water faucet running and personal to world economy intact. Your kids can't grow up and thrive if they ain't alive. World news rushes towards nuclear war at hyperspeed. Get with and boom advocates of laws only we can win to cancel doomsday. Unless you're content to sit on your ass with the family and cancel every lovely future plan y'all made, starting with water, food, and zero mushroom cloud survival. You spend 12 hours a day building the future. Steve says put 5 minutes a day into taking it back from death institutions, a very few years from killing you real fast or a little slower. Every one of those 49 times 2 sides war fighters, just like Russia and Ukraine, booms or stops the killing exactly from the number and lethality of weapons and ammo sold, bought, domestically manufactured, or far more often world imported. Even those 15 worst dictators and attackers kill only with industrial weapon supply. So first, we'll stop all possible foreign weapons imports and embargo raw materials for weapons. Few other than America and Russia can fully supply domestic war arms, and a world of non-superpower citizens and nations must put the economic screws to the 2 stupid powers behind most war on doomed Earth. Ukraine will be slaughtered fast if Uncle Sam doesn't empower their frontline defense. I agree, but when Russia's 1 million invaders kill the last 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers, our 100,000 artillery pieces won't have operators. World peace we can win 90% with worldwide arms control and very politically possible enormous slash of the American weapons industry. But Russia, North Korea, and Iran are likely to continue big domestic weaponeering and foreign aggression. Several times I discussed total economic, banking, and resource embargo of world warriors, especially against my American war empire, not democracy. I'll wrap up this speech 25 by detailing what absolute war power always does to blacken aggressors' hearts, boom their savagery, and endlessly kill millions of civilians and torture generations of survivors into wondering when death will relieve their suffering and heartbreak. Until we act, do we not invite life, murder, and hell for those still alive with only pain, no happiness, and no hope? Hundreds a day are still bombed to death in Gaza. Far more tenuously survive with bone, muscle, nerve, limb, torso, organ, face, and eye wounds. Even rifle bullets are designed to tear out exit wounds as big as grapefruit. Necessary hospital intervention requires massive painkillers. Gaza hospital's few remaining units have none. Months of life-saving reconstructive surgery is essential. World-class, expensive trauma surgery technology needs huge, constant resupply for every operation. Gaza's few remaining operating rooms get none ever. Ripped up wounded in agony lie on every square foot of hallway floors. Gauze is scarce, so Mom yanks off her shirt to stuff it in her 8-year-old's bleeding, open to the guts stomach. Morphine by the minute and hour is a must. Sorry, the last dose was given 3 months ago, so hold her hand while she screams. Food and water might give her 4 of 24 hours of sleep. None of either, so she parches, starves, hurts, and cries. Germs from the floor and a filthy blood-soaked sheet and blanket pour into her open wounds. No disinfectant for months. Hundreds wait for hospital rooms and beds. In all of Gaza, well over 99% of both were bombed to bits or just wrecked, depowered, and destaffed out of any present or future use. Tomorrow, hundreds more wounded will be carried in on blankets, while hundreds slightly less agonized and terminal, if that's possible, must be triaged out, carried by equally food and waterless family back to whatever tent can be found until that gets bombed. Journalists report these permanent horrors directly to authorities determined to continue them and ask, why won't you stop your attacks on women and children and obey laws of war to protect civilians and aid their recovery from your attack? Every answer resembles this. Hamas hides among human shields. To kill our enemy in the world's most crowded 2.3 million resident enclave, we have no choice but to slaughter everybody. This will only stop when 100% of Hamas fighters emerge from tunnels with every hostage and hold up their empty hands for handcuffs. They started it by butchering 1,200 of us, so we're going to kill or enslave Palestinians for another 100 years. My synthesis of Israeli spokesman's reasoning, policy, and crystal clear plans for military dictatorship over Palestinians forever comes from Netanyahu's full top government. So my little paraphrase is 100% accurate. For 10,000 years, such absolute military power has always been fully used, first to fill every aggressor's mind with desires and plans for permanent torture of all ruined survivors of their mass murder. The very weapons themselves direct their every ambitious, greedy, vengeful, proud, imperialistic neuron to celebrate every horror inflicted as necessary achievement of special justice and glory, only one with bestiality against all who will never be empire citizens and beneficiaries in good standing, just deplorables of the wrong color, wrong religion, and wrong flag, only fit to be corpses or slaves. To save the world, one and all, take away their weapons and teach them to love all. Then together we can and must work on surviving a very deadly environment with mutual projects to heal it. I want my listeners to send flash drive copies of my speeches to the presidents of America, Israel, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Sudan. All hyper-weaponized haters and warriors, the majority massively, expensively invading and murdering foreign populations. As water and food for their people runs lower and lower, they'll have to stop that shit and get our help to stay alive and also in power, you idiots. So join our treaty. I've covered American and Israeli genocide. Nuclear-powered China arbitrarily detains 1 million Uyghurs in state-sponsored camps, forces labor, suppresses their religious practices, and subjects them to political indoctrination, forced sterilization, forced contraception, and forced abortion. Until our treaty reforms bigot invader leaders, let's demand that American leadership not fight World War III in the Taiwan Straits when China will attack. Let's beg India and Pakistan to join our treaty because they are at high risk of a huge nuclear war. Iran weaponizes militias all over the Middle East and is about 3 weeks away from slapping together nuclear bombs. But despite their giving 450,000 big guns to Lebanon's Hezbollah, this big army has avoided more than skirmishes with Israel during its terrible 2023 and 2024 war with Hamas. Saudi Arabia's long genocide against Yemen, I blame American bomber and bomb supply for. Sudan's new Muslim civil war winner and its other 20 militias ravage border to border with World Murder Incorporated supply. 49 present plus hundreds of inevitable future wars boom, dwindle, or vanish exactly as weapons sales are ignored or legally attacked and stopped by who? Government executives and legislators boom weapons and wars for political benefit. Weaponeer bribes win them elections. Destroying democracy cements autocracy, all to boost top dogs' power, riches, and careers. Your movement fails until you gain the mass national and international clout to force judicial enforcement of democracy with public campaign finance and voting rights to elect peace and survival candidates. Progress citizen and government negotiation of our treaty to teach candidates and incumbents that disarmament and water crisis rescue proponents win elections. But weapons to war's jingoism and ignoring our survival imperatives now lose elections. We only need a zillion activists to convert a gazillion voters. Following our worldwide political success, we must embargo the monster holdouts and explode their internet with your education, love, and direction for their best, only future. Monica Beck, English teacher of preteen Stevie, demanded my short, informative, urgent, persuasive, creative written essays every day for years. After my little 47-year break dying of addiction, her spirit and love destroyed the drugs, saw humanity's death, and made me campaign to put you in charge of our rescue. Now you know how and why my every little story has eloquence, a point, and a purpose. An interviewed neurologist reported on my radio that people with ALS, a terminal illness causing progressive loss of all muscle function, including speech, required friends and other helpers to make huge emotional and intellectual adjustments to understand what they were going through. Even family tended to be afraid of the shockingly different victim, so unable to move or communicate. The other flared their negative reaction. The moment the first war, an attack on new alien farmers, set hunting weapons against humans, soon brought rapid exposure to more others, to fear, hate, and never know and love. Just attack and kill millions of members of other races, nations, and religions. Armies expanded with population. Tax money paid weapons merchants and bigger armies. Besides fear causing ever more killing of enemies, another instinct, life support acquisition. Originally satisfied by drying animal carcasses for the winter, this drive was twisted to new armed robbery and hoarding foreign money and valuables, spoils of war. This need, perverted to greed, built war institutions, including bribery of leaders by arms merchants to empty tax treasuries to them, and the ultimate politicians' fortunes and power advanced by ravaging the planet with that mountain of weapons and soldiers. Citizens and later voters were easily persuaded to rarely change war horses in midstream, always carrying the nation across savage rapids, rarely to reach any long peaceful shore. Only your laws can block instincts gone mad with money and technology best inflated by war. Stop the bribery. Destroy the weapons. Outlaw making more. Require all young and old to directly talk in classes in audio-visual contact with every nation's citizens. To know and understand is to love, respect, collaborate with, and help. Never again to fear, hate, and attack. Now, negotiate peace and solve life support problems with a world of collaborating students. Then endlessly report to world leaders also required to maintain such contacts with their peers for the solutions that every thinking, all communicating citizen on earth already democratically demands. And that, boys and girls, is how you end war, save the world, and celebrate your family's next 1,000 birthdays.